You lock eyes with a stranger on the street. They're laughing at nothing. Then another person joins in. Then another. Within a week, an entire town is convulsing in the summer heat, unable to stop moving. This isn't fiction. It happened. And the real answer to why is far stranger than anything you've been told. It was July of 1518. The city was Strasbourg. A woman named Frau Trophäa stepped into the street and began to dance. No music played, no festival had been announced. She simply moved, arms swinging, feet stamping, hour after hour. By nightfall, she hadn't stopped. By the next morning, she still hadn't stopped. Within a week, 34 people had joined her. Within a month, historians estimate the number reached 400. They danced through blistered feet. They danced through exhaustion. Some, according to surviving city records, danced until their hearts simply gave out. The city physicians were baffled, so they did the one thing that made everything worse. They built a stage. They hired musicians. They believed, based on the medical theory of the time, that the only cure for uncontrollable dancing was more dancing. Let the fever burn itself out, they thought. Instead, the music pulled in more victims. Bystanders watched the dancers, and then they became dancers themselves. Why would rational adults dance themselves to death in front of a crowd? For centuries, nobody had a satisfying answer. Some blamed hot blood. Some blamed a curse from Saint Vitus, the patron saint punishing the city for its sins. Some just called it madness and moved on. Then, in 2008, a historian named John Waller decided to actually dig through the archive. He found physician reports, city council decrees, and cathedral sermons, all written within months of the event. What he uncovered wasn't sorcery. It was famine, fear, and a very specific kind of belief. Strasbourg in 1518 was not a happy place. Crop failures had left the population starving. Smallpox and syphilis were spreading through the streets. People were already living at the edge of psychological collapse. And crucially, they shared a widespread belief that Saint Vitus could curse people into dancing madness if they angered him. That belief mattered more than you might expect. Waller's research pointed to something called mass psychogenic illness, a real documented phenomenon where extreme stress converts into involuntary physical symptoms, and where that conversion spreads through a group who shares the same fears. It isn't fake. It isn't acting. The body genuinely loses control. Here's the part that should unsettle you. This wasn't a one-time medieval oddity. Strasbourg's dancing plague was one of at least 10 documented choreomania outbreaks across Europe between the 14th and 17th centuries. According to historical medical records compiled decades ago by physician and researcher E. Louis Bachmann, different towns, different centuries, same terrifying pattern. So what's actually happening inside a brain that surrenders control like this? Your nervous system is built to discharge extreme stress somehow. Usually that discharge is invisible. A racing heart, sweaty palms, a knot in your stomach. But under the right conditions, prolonged starvation, communal terror, and a cultural script that says dancing is what happens to the cursed, that stress doesn't stay invisible. It becomes motion. Public, visible, uncontrollable motion. And once one person starts, the group does the rest. Humans are wired for something researchers call social contagion. Watching someone else's fear or someone else's symptoms can trigger the same response in your own body. You've felt a flicker of this yourself. Someone yawns near you and suddenly you're yawning too. Someone starts crying in a room and you feel your own throat tighten. Now scale that reflex up to famine-level desperation and centuries-old superstition, and you get 400 people dancing in the streets of Strasbourg. This isn't just medieval history either. Modern researchers have documented the same mechanism again and again. Sociologist Robert Bartholomew, who has spent decades studying outbreaks of mass hysteria, has traced this exact pattern into the 20th and 21st centuries. In 1962, in a school in Tanganyika, laughter spread uncontrollably among students, lasting for months and forcing schools to close. No joke started it. No single cause was ever found. Just stress, proximity, and a shared expectation that something contagious was happening. Notice the pattern. It isn't really about dancing or laughing or fainting, whatever the specific symptom happens to be. It's about a population under extreme psychological pressure, primed by a belief system that tells them exactly what form their breakdown should take. Strasbourg believed in a dancing curse, so their bodies danced. A different era, a different belief produces a different symptom entirely, which raises an uncomfortable question. What would your village's symptom look like today? You probably think you're immune to this. Modern, educated, rational. But mass psychogenic events haven't disappeared. They've just changed shape. In recent decades, researchers have documented clusters of unexplained tics, seizures, and fainting spells breaking out in schools and workplaces, spreading through social contact and, more recently, through videos shared online. The mechanism Waller found in 16th century Strasbourg hasn't gone anywhere. It just found new roads to travel down. Think about how anxiety moves through your own life. A rumor about layoffs spreads through an office, and suddenly everyone's shoulders are tighter, everyone's sleep is worse, even people who weren't directly threatened. A frightening headline circulates, and the people around you start acting like the disaster has already arrived. You don't need 400 dancers in a town square to see the same nervous system doing the same thing it did 500 years ago. The dancers of Strasbourg weren't cursed, and they weren't faking. They were carrying more fear and more starvation than a human body could silently hold, inside a culture that had already written the script for how that fear should escape. Their minds found the only exit available. Their feet just followed. Eventually, the city council figured out that music wasn't the cure. They banned public dancing, shut down the stage, and sent the afflicted to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, where the story goes that many were declared healed. Whether it was the prayer, the change of environment, or simply time and rest breaking the group's shared trance, the outbreak faded by September. The dancing stopped as suddenly as it had started. You'll probably never dance uncontrollably in the street, but the next time your chest tightens before a meeting you're dreading, or your hands shake before news you haven't even heard yet, remember Strasbourg. Your body has always known how to turn fear into motion. It's just waiting for the music to start.